Many states that once criminalized and penalized certain uses of marijuana now expressly permit the distribution and use of marijuana. That is today's topic. So how does that affect your VA home loan? And it's something that I actually came across recently, which I thought was surprising. So I wanted to share it with the veteran community, especially as there's a lot of opportunities right now in that marijuana industry to be able to get into it, both from an entrepreneurial standpoint or from an employment standpoint as well. Well, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs is required to follow all federal laws, including those related to marijuana. Because marijuana remains illegal at the federal level, and Congress has not provided any type of special exceptions for veterans hoping to use their VA home loan and getting that income. That might be a reason to reach out to the lawmakers to ask them to change it. It definitely makes it difficult for lenders to establish the stability and reliability for veterans looking to use that income from marijuana-related industries. As such, lenders find it problematic to rely on such income when underwriting VA home loans. Basically, in a nutshell, that means that you can't use that income. You can't use any of it. So if it's your sole income, you can't use it. But if you have a combination of, let's say, VA disability, a regular job, and then like you work part-time at a dispensary or something like that, then you can use the other income to qualify for your VA home loan. So now, income from employment in industries that are not prohibited at the federal level, like such as like the legal hemp industry, is not going to affect your loan for the VA home loan. So, for example, you work at a retail store that legally sells legal compliant hemp fabric, it won't raise any issues and you're good to go. But again, if you're working at a dispensary, that's going to cause some issues in the sense that you can't use any of that income. And what banks will do is they're going to search your employer. So when you list your information on the application, right, they're going to actually research it to look that up. So let's talk about what income can be used for a VA home loan and how it works. Now, remember, this is also going to apply to your spouse. So if let's say you're both going on a loan together and your spouse has income that you need from a marijuana related business, then you won't be able to use that income, which is another, not a roadblock, but it's just like another decision point on like, who do you put on the loan? And the importance of getting pre-approved well in advance of buying a property. I would typically say 6 months to a year out from buying a house. You really want to be going through that process of a pre-approval, lender looking at your income. We're happy to help. A link down below in the description is going to have a link to be able to schedule a time with us. We're happy to spend that time and go through all of it. So when you have W-2 income outside of the marijuana business, typically, lenders are going to be looking at a 2-year history. Now, there's so many exceptions to that. Let me break it down. So you can have up to a 6-month job gap, no issues. We actually did a video recently on this. The other thing is that if you're transitioning from school into an employment position, your school technically counts as employment for the purposes of a VA home loan. So again, don't disqualify yourself. Talk to a professional to walk you through that. Some of the other things that you can do with your employment piece is that if you're going back to work because you had kids, you stayed home, whoever stayed home, went into the field that they were in before and it makes sense, you could do it. There's some other exceptions to that as well. As if you go and let's say you start a new job and that employer has a special program that you get a certificate at the end to basically say like, yes, you qualify to do this job, you've been certified, then you can use all of that income right away for the purposes of buying a home. The main thing that goes with that is that your employment has to be unconditional, right? Because if your employment is conditional based on, let's say, finishing a probationary period in order to qualify for the job, then that might hinder you from buying sooner than later. But again, just note that there's a lot of exceptions to this piece and just talk with somebody. And again, if it makes sense, you can do it. self-employment is another big one for the veteran community because a lot of people will transition off of active duty into, let's say, working a contracting job. So that gets a little bit tricky because you can actually have a W-2 job and still be considered self-employed. And well, how does that work? Well, there's a couple things that are factored into that. If your income is derived from more than 25% of commission, you're considered self-employed. So if you make $100,000 a year and $75,000 of that or more is considered, or $25,000 or more is considered commission, then you're considered self-employed. Typically here, you're going to look at a 2-year history for that. Now, there's definitely exceptions to that the VA makes that you can purchase within a year if you're in an industry that basically transitioned into your new position. The challenge a lot of veterans face is that they typically write off so much in their first year or two of business that they really don't show a profit, and it is extremely hard. Doing thousands of transactions, I've only had one person be able to do that with 1 year of tax returns. So keep that in mind during that transition. The other part to that contract W-2 position is that sometimes people will work some of these government contractors and they'll put them on an assignment based on that contract work. They're not like actually full-time employees of the contractor. They're just based on the contract job. So technically you're still considered self-employed and you're going to need to show a 2-year history. And it's not a big deal. Like if you move from contract to contract to contract to contract, whatever, that's fine. As long as you can show a solid 2-year history of that. The good news is if you're self-employed for a year and a half, but go into a W-2 position full-time, you can just use your new income right away. If you're going from being W-2 employed, going into self-employed, that's where it becomes problematic for a lot of individuals. So again, that's something you just need to be aware of. If you receive Social Security income, VA disability income, and a pension, any combination or none of those, right? But if you're receiving that income, you can actually use all of that income right away to qualify for a VA home loan. Not only that, we actually gross that income up by another 25%, giving you more purchasing power. Now, the VA loan looks at residual income, not debt to income ratio, but debt to income ratio is a factor in the VA loan, not to make things complicated. So the grossing up gives you better standards for the DTI, but then that income is reduced for residual purposes. But again, that's something the lender will walk you through. And don't forget the quirky thing with VA home loans and square footage is that they count 14 cents per square foot for utility costs. That counts against you for buying a property. Some people love it, some people don't. But if you guys have any additional questions, please drop some comments down below. And then the last situation is when you're in a divorce situation. So if you're receiving alimony or child support, typically a lender is going to look for 6 months of on-time receipt of that income to make sure that it's reliable. Now, if you're paying it, then it's right away, it's deducted from your ability to purchase a property. So that's something, again, you got to keep in mind. So again, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comment section. If you want more videos around a certain topic that you're interested in, happy to do it. There's so many questions around housing that we could probably put on thousands of videos, and that is the goal to do. So I'll catch you guys soon. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button.